Hey guys, it's Lindsay. Today we're going to do a breaking down the mat class. So getting to really understand all the cues that I use during a more advanced routine. So we're just going to slow it down. This doesn't necessarily have to be for someone who's basics or beginner level, even though it's definitely made for a newer Pilates student. If you're an advanced practitioner, you'll certainly be able to take something from this class and apply it elsewhere in your workouts. So first we're going to begin with breathing. Breathing in Pilates, we do something called posterior lateral breath. And that is about breathing around the waist, around the rib cage. So I'm going to have you take your hands and place your palms around your waist, right around the ribs. Allow your shoulders to drop down, and then just simply begin to breathe. Take big breaths through your nose, and a deep breath out through your mouth. As you breathe in through your nose, I want you to feel your ribs expand out to the sides, like an accordion. And as you breathe out through your mouth, use a ha breath, and feel the ribs wrap back in around the spine. So we're going to inhale to think expansion through the rib cage, and exhale to think of a narrowing of the ribs. And as you breathe in, the ribs are stretching apart. And as you breathe out, you should feel a contraction of those abdominals pulling in towards the spine. And using proper breath during class also helps with circulation, with relieving tension, so that when we're working in a difficult position, sometimes we start to really crunch up in our neck and shoulders. Good. Using your breath technique here will help allow softening of those places. Let's do 2 more breaths. So thinking laterally. Inhale, expand into the side body. And exhale, cinching back in. 1 more breath. Inhale, breathe in, expand. Exhale, release. Now take your right hand to the front of the ribs and the back of your left hand to the back of your body. So now we're going to think of breathing front and back. So as you breathe in, you're expanding forward and back at the same time. And as you breathe out, you're releasing that extension. Inhale to breathe into the body, creating space internally. And exhale to release. Now, as we practice breath in Pilates, we want to focus on still keeping the lower abdominals toned. Versus yoga belly breath, when you try to puff up your belly in your breathing. Here I want you to maintain a slight engagement of the core even on the inhalation. So you aren't thinking of puffing the belly out into your shirt, you're actually thinking of drawing the navel in away from your shirt the whole time. Good. Inhale to expand forward and back. And exhale to release. Maintaining a nice tall spine. Good. Now release your hands, just rest them on your knees. Okay, we're going to think of 4 directional breathing. So you're thinking front, side, back, side, north, east, south, west. So here we go. Thinking of kind of like a circle, a ring around your waist. Breathe out into all directions of that circle. And then as you breathe in, narrow back in. Think of that corseting action. So inhale to expand, and then exhale to narrow. Much easier to practice this when we're not moving. When we begin to add the movement to it, it gets more challenging to continue to breathe. It's so common to hold your breath, especially during core work. You won't get as much out of it. You'll start to turn purple. We don't want that. So give me 2 more breaths right here. And last breath. Release. Nice work. Made it through the breathing. Now we're going to start to look at the curves of the spine. So we're going to start with the low back. In Pilates, we do 2 different spines mainly. One is called imprint spine and one is called neutral spine. A lot of times we talk about it when we're laying flat on our back, but I want to show you it from different positions, so maybe it will make a little bit more sense. The first position we're going to look at is from a kneeling position. Knees, hips distance apart, and we're paying attention to our pelvic wheel, our lower back, our hip region. So just start relaxed. You're not trying to do anything quite yet. What we're gonna do is send our tailbone, which is right here, back behind us. So now we have a big arch in our back. Now we're gonna send our tailbone through our inner thighs, curl our hips up, and our low back has now lengthened and lost some of its natural curve. So we're going to send the tailbone back, tilting the pelvis. We're gonna just tuck that tailbone through, elongating that low back. So let's do 2 more of those. We're rocking just from the low back, just from the hips. And then pay attention, if you don't understand it quite yet, if you're moving your neck and shoulders. So there's no movement from the shoulders. So we're gonna tuck and untuck. And I'll show it from the front. Not that you can see my hips going forward and back anymore, but you can see that my shoulders and my chest aren't moving as I do this. So it's really small, as a curl of the hips. Okay, now we're gonna take it down to all 4, so you can just see it from a different direction. So we're placing those hands underneath the shoulders. I'm in a flat back, and I'm not gonna move my upper back. We're isolating the lower back. We're gonna send the tailbone up. I'm over-exaggerating that natural curve in my low back. You can see there's a bigger dip. And now I'm gonna tuck my tailbone through, and I've gotten rid of the natural curve. Send the tailbone up. Curl the tailbone through. Good. So when your tailbone is lifting up, not in an exaggerated amount, but a little bit, that is when you are in a neutral spine and you have this natural dip here, right here in your low back. When your tailbone is tucking through and your low back is filled up, there's no dip, that is called imprinted spine. So let's come down onto our back. This is where we usually work neutral and imprint. And maybe it will make a little bit more sense this time around. So we're laying on our backs with your feet planted and your knees bent. And I want you to push your tailbone away from you. So now you could slip your hand between your low back and the floor, but your upper back, your back rib cage, is down on the mat. So we're not in a big back bend, we just have that little natural curve. Now tuck your tailbone through your inner thighs to your belly and press your low back down. Now there should be no space. You can't get your hand through it. Rock the hips away from you, these hip bones towards the knees. We have the natural curve. And then pull the hip bones up to the ribs. We flatten the back, imprint. So let's rock forward and back. Tailbone goes down, tailbone tucks through. And all of this movement is just from your pelvis. Trying not to move your ribs and above, or your feet for that matter. So there shouldn't be any movement forward and back or side to side of the legs, just the pelvis. Good. As you tuck your hips and move into imprint, exhale, pull that belly in deeper. Inhale, expand the ribs, find neutral. So one more. Exhale, tuck, narrow the ribs. Inhale, elongate the spine, expand the ribs. And then bring yourself all the way back to kneeling. The next thing we are looking at is our shoulder blades. So now we're gonna move the upper back and not the lower back. I know, we're switching it up. So I want you to reach your hands straight forward. Have your palms face the floor. Low back is just in neutral, so we have the natural curve. We're not trying to tuck, we're not trying to overarch. Belly button is lifted in and up, arms reach straight forward. Now I want you to reach forward and try to touch the wall in front of you, rounding out your upper back. Your chest has a little C curve to it. We have spread the shoulder blades away from the middle of the back, and this is called protraction of the shoulder blades. Now, pull your chest through your arms and draw your shoulder blades to the back, widening your chest. Now it's in a straight line. Upper back is engaged. This is called retraction of the shoulder blades. So you're gonna reach forward and round your chest, spreading the back apart, and then draw back through the shoulder blades and pull them together. I want you to exhale as you reach forward, and inhale as you draw back. Good, now I'm gonna show you this from the back angle, so you can see the blades of my back move. So I'm gonna reach forward and round, and draw back and open up. Do you see that squeeze right there in my back? right here between the shoulder blades. One more. Reach forward and round. And then draw back and connect. Good. And then we're going to take this onto all fours. So again, we're keeping the pelvis still this time. We're moving from the upper back. Hands spread very wide, so fingers are spread apart. As you breathe out, you'll push the ground away from you, lift your chest up into your back. As you breathe in, your chest will move towards the ground and the shoulder blades will pull to the spine. We're going to exhale, push out of the floor, pull the chest into the back. And then inhale, lower the chest down and pull the shoulders together. Good, let's do 2 more. So you feel a widening and a spreading of the thoracic spine. And then you feel a narrowing and an engagement of that area as the chest comes through. Notice I'm not bending and extending my elbows either. So it's a movement in the back but not the arms. Nicely done. Okay, our next thing we're looking at is the cervical spine. So we're kind of climbing up the ladder. I'm going to sit sideways, and the cervical spine is your neck. So see this little dip we have here, this natural curve? There's an indentation here. It's the same curve that we have in our low back. It's called a lordotic curve. It goes into the body. So what I want you to do is think of your chin sitting on a table. You can even put your hand underneath your chin. You're going to pull your chin directly back into your body, and then let it release forward. Pull it directly back into your body like you're pushing your head into a headrest, and then release forward. So what we're not doing is looking up or looking down. Your eyes are at the same level the whole time. Chin is sitting on a table, and it stays on that level the whole time we do this exercise. So what this engages is the muscles around the spine and your neck. And these have gotten really weak nowadays because we're all sitting down on a computer, looking down driving, looking down texting, hopefully not doing those 2 at the same time. I've got you. Good, so just think of kind of engaging those rear neck muscles as you pull back. I'm sure you guys are all thinking of someone that could really use this exercise. You need to share it with them. They'll thank you. Less neck and back pain later in life, or even relieve it now. Good, so this is super simple. We call this the chicken exercise. We're going to try it in different positions. So come to all fours so we can see what this looks like. So I just want your back in a neutral spine. So we've worked on this, right? We've got a natural curve here. Our abs are tight. Our chest is slightly lifting up, a little protraction of the shoulder blades spreading apart so we're not falling down into our arms. Now our neck, we're going to let the chin drop towards the ground. Keeping your eyes in the exact same spot, pull your chin up into your throat. So your chin drops down towards the floor, and then you're going to pull it up into your throat. So the chin is making a straight line up and down, rather than looking forward or looking toward your thighs. Good, let's just do 2 more right here. And last one. Good, so this is something I want you to think about when you're in a plank. So we're going to come into a plank now. Hands are underneath the shoulders. Biggest thing I see in planks, we're going to work all the curves right now. So we just talked about our pelvis, right? See how my butt's sticking up? We do not want that while we're in our plank. We also don't want our hips dropping down. We want to be somewhere in a neutral spine, maybe a little tuck of the pelvis so that your low back doesn't have too much arch to it. So this is the area we're looking at, right? It's not overarched, the belly is in. Now let's look at our upper back, our shoulder blades. So really important here that we're not sinking in our shoulders. This is not good. I need you to push the ground away from and protract your shoulder blades, meaning push them apart from each other. Be really strong in this position. Okay, so now we're coming up to our neck. So something I see a lot, besides the chest falling, is this, letting your head fall. So that's not really good alignment. It's putting a lot of pressure on your upper spine. So what you want to do is first pull the chin off the chest. You're looking just a little out in front of you, and then pull the chin back into the throat. So let's look at those two closely. So look at what it would not look good to have a plank. Hips dropping, chest dropping, head falling. Real bad on the spine. So engage your legs, lift the hips, fill the low back up with your core, spread the shoulder blades apart, gaze forward and pull your head back in space. Not forward, not tucked, not dropping. Down to the ground, slightly out in front of you. And then take it to the floor. Okay, so I hope that has all made sense. That is kind of breaking down the elements that we're going to work with in this class. So here we go. We're going to lay down on our back. I know it's a lot of information, so don't feel stressed if it doesn't make sense today. Keep practicing it, keep experiencing it in your body, and eventually, more and more, it will make sense. Just like math, right? You go to a math class when you're in 8th grade and you're in algebra and you're like, I have no idea what they're saying. Eventually, it starts to make sense. Hopefully. So let's take it down to our backs. Feet are planted. Toes, knees, hips, all point straight forward. This is called parallel. Hips distance apart with the feet, hands by your waist. Neutral spine, so you're pressing the tailbone into the floor. We have a little tunnel between our low back and the mat that a ladybug could crawl underneath to the other side, but our rib cage is down, so we don't have too much of an arch. Now you're going to imprint your spine by tucking your hips. Now lift your butt up. Start to peel the back off the floor bone by bone, 1 inch at a time. Stand in your feet, knees should still be pointing straight up, not knocking in or out. And now keeping your hips lifted, you'll roll down from the upper part of the back that's lifted to the middle back and then to your tailbone where you have the natural curve again. So this is called our pelvic curl. As you breathe out, draw the belly in, pressing the low back into the floor, curl the hips up, and roll the spine off the mat. Articulating the spine. Articulating meaning moving joint by joint. And then roll down. Nice and smooth. This one, no matter how advanced you are, to get the true benefits of this exercise, it's good to do it really slowly and think about literally moving piece by piece. This exercise is meant to create mobility and flexibility in your spine. Good. You might notice that you get to a certain area of your back where you feel like it comes down or up in like a block, like 5 or 6 inches of your back lifts or lowers. So that's where you're going to want to try to move slower through the back. Okay, let's do 2 more. So we're using our exhale to peel up. And if this is feeling good, you can lift all the way up till that upper part of your back ribs. And then roll it all the way down. Last one. You can also keep it really small, just moving from imprint to neutral if that feels like enough. Glutes are engaged, thighs are engaged, inner thighs are hugging in, and then roll it down. So the next movement we're looking at is staying in neutral. So this means we have the natural curve, the rib cage is connected, the chest is open. And then we'll lift our hips up, straight up to the ceiling, without changing the shape of your back. So your back is flat like a board, your butt lifts, the butt lowers. Good. Exhale, we're coming up. Inhale, we're moving down. Good. And then if it feels safe on your spine, you can lift up as much as those shoulder blades still stay on the ground. So we don't want to be so high where our chest is up into our chin. That's more of like a yoga bridge. And then lower down. Now this is to create strength in the back and in the legs. That's what we're focusing on this exercise. So I want you to think of drawing your glutes together, tightening your core. Good, so we're hinging from the hips. The torso is moving straight up and down. Good, last 2. Exhale, lift. At the top, make sure we're not rolling those shoulders forward. Spread that spine apart. Breathe out, lift up. Breathe in, lower down. Great job. From here, we're going to work on pelvic stability. So we've talked about neutral and imprint, which is front and back, but there's also side to side. So when we are working pelvic stability, we do not want the pelvis to move at all. Stability meaning stationary, kind of, right? We're challenging its balance, which is weird to think about when you're in a laying down position. Balance doesn't really resonate with us, right? We think balance is all about standing up. But I want you to move into an imprinted spine. So we're going to protect that low back. So you're going to engage your core and press the small of your back, the little arch, into the floor. Abs are super tight here. So if I were to punch you in the stomach, you're ready for it. You're nice and engaged here. I'm going to bring the legs up to tabletop. And then I want you to put a marble on your belly button. So you're going to try to balance the marble. So that's the idea of the stability here. Your right leg will stay in tabletop, and we'll extend the left leg straight up to the sky. If you need to bend the left knee to modify, that's totally fine. Point your toes, firm your thigh, arms rest on the floor, draw a small circle to the left, down, right, and center. Left, down, right, and center. Now that marble is on your belly button. You are trying to keep your hips very still and move your left leg independently from your upper body. So the only thing moving is that left leg. Good. Rib cage presses down, lumbar spine presses down. If this is easy, you can make the circle a little bit bigger. Remember, your right leg should not be moving either. So maybe you put a marble also on that right shin. So that shouldn't be rolling around either. I want you to take an inhale as the circle moves away from you, and an exhale as the leg comes back to center. We're going to take one more, and then we're reversing this. Good, now let's draw the circle into the body, down, out to the left, and around. Inhale as you lower the leg. Exhale as you pull the leg back to center. Good, still pressing the small of the back into the floor. And trying to keep the balance of our hips. It's really challenging to make this circle super tiny. Good, if you want a little bit more challenge because you're ready for it, graduate to a bigger circle. Good, two more right here. Tiny movements, hard work. Last one. Good, and now we'll bend that left leg to tabletop. Hips are evenly weighted as we extend that right leg to the sky. Now we'll draw the circle out to the right, down, back to the midline and up. So I'll inhale to the right, exhale through center. I'm reaching through my toes and then keeping my thigh nice and strong. And you can always modify by bending the knee. Okay, maybe the circle gets bigger, but if you make the circle bigger and you notice something like this happening, that's when you need to shrink that circle down so that you can really just focus your mind-muscle connection on your hips. Now when we take the leg out to the right, you might feel like the body gets pulled right. So we're going to now introduce something called our obliques, the side ab muscles. When your leg moves right, you got to keep your left hip really heavy, your left rib cage really heavy so you don't fall over. So there's that balance, right? Okay, we're going to reverse the circle, going into the body, down, out to the right. So our marble is still there on our belly, and we're trying not to let it roll to either side. Good, let's take 4 more. Exhale through center, drop the belly down for 3. And 2. Woo, I'm feeling it in my stomach. And 1. Good, rest the knees, hug them in. Okay, legs are coming to tabletop. We're gonna start to really work those lower abdominal muscles. Knees are in tabletop. Now I want your knees over your hips. So if your knees are closer to your belly, it's going to kind of relax the core a bit. And we wanna be working, right? So knees over the line of the hips. I'm engaging my core and pressing my spine into the mat from the engagement of my stomach. So this is imprinted spine, no natural curve. Do not let your back lift a hair. To the degree that you can keep your back on the mat, you'll lower your right leg, and maybe it's that far. And then exhale, you'll bring your right leg back up. Inhale, lower your left leg. Exhale, abs stay on the mat, return. Now if you're a little bit stronger in your core, you can explore going lower with the leg. But truly using your core for this exercise will mean that you're not moving from your back, and that when you move your legs, the change of your back is absent. There is no change in your back. Your back should stay on the mat. Good. For me, I'm stronger in my low abs, so maybe this is you. You could reach a little lower to the floor, but be honest with yourself. Don't just go down to the ground and do this, right? That's not the exercise. The exercise is moving from the core muscles, engaging from that low belly, and keeping that back flat. Last one here. Okay, legs together. Inner thigh engagement. Pressure into the legs, hug them together. That activates those inner thighs. So, small of the back down, rib cage connected. We're gonna inhale, take both toes down. You'll stop before your back leaves the floor. And then exhale to pull the knees back up over the hips from your abs. Good, so the same thing is true here, but this is now a little bit more challenging because we've added more weight lowering and lifting at the same time. So your range of motion may be smaller. Good, if you feel like you have the strength, you can try to take the legs lower. Good, so I'm inhaling, expanding my ribs on the way down, but not my stomach. I'm keeping that engaged. And then I'm exhaling, cinching my waist on the way up. So you can put your hands on your belly, and I want you to also notice when you take your legs down towards the floor, your stomach should not protrude up. It should be continuously drawing in. Yeah? Not up to the sky, but into the floor. Or you can think of it as your shirt. So it shouldn't be filling up your shirt or your palms. It should be moving away from your palms on the way down. Good, one more right here. So you're gonna inhale, take it down, pull the core away from the palms, and exhale, lift it up. And then set your feet down. Woo, moving slow is challenging. So plant your feet down in line with your hips, knees and toes point forward. We're gonna now work on those upper abs. So hands are coming behind the head. So feel the space between your chin and your chest. It's about, say, 3 to 4 inches. There should be that same exact amount of space once you're up in a chest curl. So when I lift up into a curl, I'm moving from my shoulders and my upper back and not my neck. Yes, your neck is lifting off the ground, but this is what it would look like if you move from your neck. That is in no way working your abs. That's working your neck. Okay, so let your head lay back in your hands. As you curl up, I want you to exhale and lift your back off the floor. Just try it. Maybe it's foreign to you, that's okay. We're just gonna practice. Upper back lifts. So I still have that same space between my chin and my chest at the top. And then lower down. So maybe you look and watch me do a couple, and then you practice it. So you'll exhale, lift your upper back off the mat, and then inhale, lower that upper back down. Breathe out to lift the shoulder blades up. Breathe in to lower. Now I want you to feel like your head is heavy in your hands. So your hands are holding your head, rather than your hands pushing your head forward like this. I see that a lot. So that's not good either. That's actually creating a lot of tension for the head. So let's work with our breath. So on your next one, you're gonna breathe out. Pull the stomach muscles to the mat. Lift the chest up. Breathe in, lower down. And I want you to feel like you're creasing your shirt. So when you curl up, you're rounding your spine, you're creating a little crunch, a little roll right in your belly. And take it back down. Let's do 2 more. Breathe out, lift up. Breathe in, lower down. Good. See a rounding of your core. Push it into the floor. And lower down. Okay, we're gonna work some rotation in this position. So when we do rotation in Pilates, we're trying to isolate from our center. So hands right around the ribs. From your rib cage and above, we're gonna turn. From your rib cage, or the bottom of the ribs, the bottom of those frontal ribs, and below, we are not gonna move. So your feet are pressing down, your knees are still, your hip bones are still. Hands come behind the head. We're gonna curl up, maintain that length of the neck. Now look at your legs, try not to let them move. We're gonna turn your upper body to the left. So I'm twisting left. I don't care how much you twist. I care that it's good alignment. My feet have not moved, my knees have not knocked left, they're still pointing to the sky. And then I'm coming center, now I'm twisting to the right. Knees still point straight up, they're not moving. So let's just flow through it a little quicker. I'm gonna exhale, twist left. Inhale, come center. Exhale, twist right. Inhale, come center. So that marble is on your pelvis again. We're working that pelvic stability. Good, now let's start to think of what's going on in the chest. I want your elbows to stay open, your neck to be lengthened, and your collarbones are spreading away from one another. So the front of the heart is not rounded. One more each side. To the right, center, and take a rest. Oh yes, hello core muscles. Okay, ready to do some leg work. So, we're still really focusing on alignment for this class. Gonna come to lay down on your left side, and you can either put a pillow underneath your head, you can use a bent arm or a straight arm. I typically like to use a bent arm, so I'm gonna bring my left arm underneath my head. Actually, I'm gonna straighten it, feels better. So I'm just gonna have that support for my head, so I've got a nice long line. And now I want your low back to have that natural curve. So I'm actually gonna slide my hips back but not move my chest. So my hips are more towards the back of the mat. Bring your knees forward so they line up with your hip creases, and your feet will line up with your knees. Top hand to your top hip. Now push your top hip down towards your feet. So I have now just lengthened my side and I've lifted my bottom waist up. So see how I have a little space here? That's where your waist naturally indents. So when you're standing and you have that natural little indentation, it's more common in women. We have like wider hips, so it's more obvious to see that indentation. That's what we're lifting off the floor here. So we still have our natural curves on our side body. Belly is engaged, shoulders and hips stay stacked. So this is another place we work pelvic stability. When we start to move our legs, we do not want anything else to move. That means that our core is engaged and we're working the stability in our hips. If you feel very unbalanced here, place your top hand on the floor for extra support. Otherwise, top hand to your hip. The leg will stay in this exact position. We'll lift our right leg up to the height of our hip. Our foot is just relaxed, and then we'll lower it down. So these are pretty small. Lift up to the height of the hip and lower down. Now I want the leg to be at a 90-degree bend. So my hip and my knee line up, and my knee and my foot line up. A common thing that happens here is you lifting your foot too much, or you lifting your knee too much. So think of that shin being like a table. It's parallel to the wall in front of you. So we're starting to work the outer hip muscles, our abductors, our abductors. So this exercise looks so simple, but in a couple seconds you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm starting to feel the side of my hip. And that's the area we're working. Now if it makes sense at all, I want you to think of squeezing your butt, this right hip here, as you lift, and releasing that muscle as you lower. Squeeze and release. Good, we're gonna do 2 more right here. 2, and notice you still have the lift of your side, and your hip does not roll open as you lift your leg. So the hips stay stacked. Last one, and take it down. Connect your heels, so your heels push into each other and they stay connected the whole time. We're gonna close our knees, and now open your knee. Heels connected. Close the knees. Open the knees, squeeze your tush. So this is called our clams in Pilates, and it works that same muscle area. Puts us in a turned out position, externally rotates the hip. Now, notice this one is easier to want to open this hip up to the sky, right? Like that. So that's not the movement. We want to still work the hip stability. Open the knee as far as you can without rolling this right hip back. 3 more per 3. And 2. Last one, you're going to keep your knee up and you're going to lower and lift 1 inch. Pulses. Pulses in Pilates are infamous. They add to that burn. As you push your knee up, I want you to squeeze your tush. Give me 5 more nice and slow. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and rest. Woo! That's a quick little burn. Okay, modified side plank. We'll come onto our left forearm. Kick your heels back towards your butt. Knees are somewhat a little bit below the hip line. You're going to push down into your forearm. We want to anchor this left shoulder. So we're pushing the ground away from us and pulling the shoulder onto our back. Then lift up your hips by pushing down into your forearm and your shins. This works our oblique, our side body. If it's very hard for you to stay up, just take a break every now and then, lower down. Otherwise, we're going to try to do a 30-second hold. Shoulders are stacked, so be careful of rounding forward. Try to keep that top shoulder opening up. Hips are stacked. And my bottom waist is lifted and squeezing that left side. I want to lengthen my head, but if I'm feeling any tension, feel free to look to the floor. That's totally fine. But try not to collapse the head, right? We talked about neck alignment earlier. Okay, you're almost there. We got 8 seconds. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lower down. Okay, let's do it all on the other side. Beauty of unilateral movement. You do it to one side, we gotta do it to the other. Okay, so we're coming over onto our right side this time. And I think I went with that straight arm. So I'm gonna stick with the straight arm, but know you can put a pillow, bend your arm, whatever felt best. Okay, so hips and shoulders are stacked. I'm reaching my tailbone to the back wall. Hips in line with knees, knees in line with feet. And I've got my lift of my bottom waist. This is that little indentation we were talking about. This engages our obliques and our core muscles. So we don't want to crunch here on our side. We don't want to be hiking this left hip up. We want to be lengthening that left hip away from us, creating space on the side of our waist. So from here, top hand to the hip or on the mat. You're going to lift your top leg up and lower it down. Good, so we've got that pelvic stability, and I also want you to think of pushing your bottom leg into the floor. So the bottom leg shouldn't lift up and down with you, just that top leg is moving. Good, and remember your left shin is in line, or it's parallel, so the knee and the ankle line up with each other. And we're just keeping a relaxed foot today, so we don't get too fancy. Good, squeeze your left tush as you lift, and then release. And if that seems like a foreign idea, sometimes having something tactile, physical to push into helps. So you can put your hand on that muscle, on that left glute, and push into it right now when you lift your leg, and see if you're like, okay, I can kind of feel that muscle. Keep thinking about it. Eventually it'll make sense of doing that contraction. Okay, last one. Now we're headed into our clams. So your heels tighten, they press into each other, and now we'll open and close this left knee. I'm only going to press my thigh back as far as my left hip does not move. No movement from the pelvis. Good. Slide those shoulders down, relax your neck. And we're working with our breath. So we're breathing out as we lift the leg, and we're breathing in as we lower. And every time you take that inhale, I want you to try to relax any of the areas that you find in your body like to tense. Good, 3 more, and then we're on to those pulses for 3. And 2. Final 1. 1. Keep the knee up. We lift and lower 1 inch. down an inch, press open, down an inch, press open. So it's super small, but very effective, and it definitely burns, yeah? Okay, give me 5 more. 5, 4. It's those little muscles, right? 3, 2, 1. Release. Oh my gosh. Slower is painful in a good way, right? It's that good hurt. So we've got our modified side plank. So you're going to come on your right forearm. We've got our shoulder right over that elbow, and I'm pushing out of the floor. I'm lifted up. Knees are bent. Heels kick back to your tush. And I'm going to push down into my feet and my shins and lift my hips up. We're working this right oblique now. Shoulders stacked, so I want you to make sure this chest is not rounding forward. We're opening that left shoulder. Hand to the hip. If you need extra help, you can bring it to the floor until you feel safe to hold yourself up here. Okay, we've got 20 seconds left. Remember, if you need to modify for any tension in that neck, just look to the ground. Try not to let your head fall. So we're working our outer hips as well here. I'm sure you can feel it a little bit more on this side. Push and lift up. We've got 10. Give me a smile. You're getting so far through this workout. And 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Good work. Okay, so now we're going to work extension of the spine. Flexion is when we do that chest curl or a sit-up. Extension is when you do like somewhat of a back bend is what it would be considered. So we're going to lay on our bellies. We're taking this nice and slow, so don't be worried if you usually have maybe some discomfort in this position. We're going to kind of explore this and figure out what's best for you. Good, but listen to your body. So we're on our stomachs. We're going to have our legs as wide as the mat. That's going to help relieve some pressure in the low back. Then I want your knees to point straight down. And you know how we talked about neutral and imprint here? I want you to imprint your spine here. So if we were in neutral, or over-exaggerating neutral, it would be like that. See how my tailbone is sticking weight up? I want you to send your tailbone through your inner thighs to the floor. Press your pubic bone into the ground so it feels like your hips are firming into the mat. And see how I've gotten rid of this curve? Now I want you to maintain that. So let's look at that one more time. Butt up, no good. We don't want that. We want the hips down and my tailbone lengthening to the back of the mat. So there's less of a curve here. Now I want you to incorporate pelvic stability. So now that we have found this position, I do not want you to move it at all. So maintain it. When we're working with our chest curl, we do not want to be moving here. So it's not this. I know that looks a little interesting, but it's not that. It's from your shoulder blades and above. So we're just going to have our hands rest on the mat, palms face the floor, eyes look down. You can rest your forehead. I want you to lift your upper back up and your head will follow along. So your chest lifts off the floor, your eyes look down, and we still have not moved from that low back. And then you'll lower back down. Good, so lead with the chest, the head will follow. The shoulder blades connect in the back, and then lower back down. Now let's incorporate some of the chin into the throat. So pull your chin back into your throat without moving your gaze forward, yeah? Not looking forward, just looking down and slightly out in front of you, and then lower down. As you lift up, I want you to inhale, pull the head into an imaginary headrest behind you, and then lower down. Okay, let's think about the shoulder blades. As you breathe in, retract the shoulder blades, pull them together to the spine, and open that collarbone up, and lower down. Good, let's add a lift of the arms. So we've got our head pulling off the floor, our shoulder blades retracting, and our low back still staying full, so there's no arch there. And then lowering down. We're gonna take 3 more. I'm gonna inhale, lift up, squeeze the back, exhale, lower down. Reach your fingertips towards your feet so those shoulders stay off of the neck. I have a lot of space in my neck. Last one. Inhale brings you up, expand the heart. Exhale, lower down. Awesome work. Okay, so let's work the legs in this position. It's the same idea. We do not want the pelvis bobbing up and down like that. So I'm pressing the front of my hips into the floor so that I fill up my low back and I pull my abs off the ground. Maybe they're still touching, you know, but I'm trying to pull them into my body. Turn your toes and knees out, squeeze your glutes, and now lift your legs up and down. Now, if you're doing this wrong, your low back will get an arch, and then it will fill up. Low back gets an arch and fills up. So it doesn't have to be that big. It's actually very small. So you're just lifting your leg to the point where you feel a crease at your tush and the back of your leg. So we lift and lower. So you can rest your head on your forearms, squeeze, release. And I'm trying really hard to keep my low back filled up and work from the correct area, which would be right at the base of the hamstrings and where the glutes connect. Now, once you've rested your head, really try not to let your head and your chest pull you up as well. So just working from that lower region. Very nice, guys. 2 more. And last one. And rest. And let's press back into a child's pose. So after you extend the spine, really important to do a counter pose, meaning something that puts the back in the opposite position. C-curve that spine, toes together, knees apart, walk the hands forward, rest your head on the mat. And exhale to release. And then walk your hands in and bring yourself up. Awesome work, guys. We are going to take it to an all fours position. So you can always put a pillow, roll your mat up if you need some extra padding for your knees. So you'll take your hands down right underneath your shoulders. And there's definitely modifications. If you need to come to forearms, you can put your forearms on maybe like a bench to prop you up a little bit higher, or a chair. Shoulders slide down. Now we're going to work some of those alignments of the spines we started class with. So let everything just kind of fall and hang. We're in the wrong position. Now I want you to pull your face away from the floor. Then I want you to press the ground away from you and lift your chest up. So we are protracting those shoulder blades and not letting the chest just hang out here. So we're strong the whole time. Ribs and belly are tight. And we're going to do a slight imprint of the spine, a slight tuck of the pelvis. So our low back has not very much curve here. Now our spine is not going to move at all as we start to work our legs. Bend your left knee, pull your heel in towards your tush, and flex your foot. Now you're going to lift your left knee up off of the mat, still not moving from that low back. The left knee lifts to the height of the body, and then it lowers down. It's going to move slow and controlled. Heel is tight towards your butt, leg lowers and lifts, but nothing else moves. So I'll show you what I don't want to see. When the leg goes up, I don't want it to be from your spine arching like this, yeah? So the main thing I see here is the pelvis doing that. So keep that pelvis slightly tucked and completely still. At the top range of the motion, I want you to pause for a 2-second count and squeeze your butt right here. 1, 2, release. Finding that isometric contraction. So that means you have to flex the muscle yourself, create your own tension. Exhale as you lift up. Inhale as you lower down. Okay, so we're in it now. Make sure your face hasn't fallen, your chest hasn't dropped. My face had fallen a little bit. Okay, last 3. Squeeze at the top. 2. On 1, your leg will stay lifted. We'll lower and lift for pulses. So we go down an inch, up an inch, down an inch, up an inch. See how filled up my low back is and it has not changing shape? Try to find that in your body by lifting your core muscles and slightly scooping those hip bones up towards the ribs. 5 more pulses. 5, 4, keep that heel close. 3, 2, 1. And release, stretch it out, flex those foot, push the heel back. Okay, let's take it over to the right. So, re-lift out of the ground, abs in, feel like your tailbone is tucking towards your navel, and then flex your right heel up towards your tush. Keeping it parallel, we're gonna go straight up through center, and then back down to the ground. Breathe out, lift up. Breathe in, lower down. Now I know this is very simple, but when done correctly, without moving from the wrong place, you will feel this so much more in the back of your leg and in your butt. If you start to swing from the hips, it really takes the work out of the muscle. And one, it's not effective, and two, we can cause some issues in that low back. Good, we're going for 5 more. Remember that pause at the top. Hold on to the contraction and lower. And 4. And maintain that lift. It's so easy when you start focusing on other things to kind of just drop into it. So push the floor away from you. Last 2. We've got our pulses. So we're going to hold the leg up right here on 1. As high as you can without letting that low back arch, and now we'll pulse. Squeeze to lift, lower an inch, lift an inch, squeeze your bum. Absolutely no movement in that torso, and we got 6. Heel close, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release, sit back onto your heels. Shake those wrists out. Maybe even come on top of the hands and give them a little stretch. Okay, so we're gonna come into a plank. We're gonna look at everything we've worked at in our plank. If you wanna come to forearms, you certainly can to modify. I'm gonna go onto my hands. So your other modification would be on your knees. Hands underneath the shoulders, knees are underneath the hips. If you're doing a modified plank, I want you to lean your body weight forward without dropping your hips. Yep, so from my head to my knees, I'm in one line, but I'm on a diagonal, so I'm not straight up and down, I'm leaning into it. Good, I also don't want you to be here, so look straight out in front of you, so maybe you're there. If you're a little bit more advanced, we're gonna come up into a full plank. Toes are tucking behind us, so we're going to just talk about everything we talked about today. So the face is pulling away from the ground, I'm looking just a couple inches out in front of me. My hands are spread very wide and every part of my hand is pressed down. So there's no space between my palm and the mat. Shoulder blades are spreading apart, chest is lifting up. I have a connection of my core muscles, like someone's poking me in the stomach. I'm trying to lift up. My tailbone is reaching back to my heels and my legs are engaged. So a lot of times I see people in planks and they're here and they're relying so much on the upper body. Remember, you can definitely use your legs here. So think of pushing your thighs up to the back of the legs or thighs up to the ceiling. Press the heels back, reach the chest forward. We're here for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take it down. Awesome work. Okay, you ready for your grand finale? We're gonna break down the Pilates push-up. So let's do it on the knees today. In the push-up, I see so often one of the things we talked about is the head dropping, which is just really not good form. It's so much better to do less reps and have better form. So in your push-up, take your hands wider than they were in your plank. I would suggest about as wide as your mat. We're on our knees. Now the further modification from this is doing your push-ups more in an all-fours position. If you're a little bit more advanced, you walk the knees back and we're in one long line. From our knees to our head, we have that tailbone reaching to the back of our knees. Now the first thing I want you to pay attention to when you go into a push-up is that you don't lead with your face. So your head is not going to lead the movement, your chest will. I'm going to lower from the knees to my head in one piece. So when I bend my elbows, everything is descending simultaneously. And as I press back up, everything lifts back up. Let's look at what it should not look like. That guy, right? That's not a good one. So let's find that alignment. Shoulders slide down, chest moves forward, neck is elongated. We're keeping that head pulling away from the floor. Take an inhale as you bend the elbows. Whole hand is planted. Exhale, push the ground away from you. We're gonna do 5 more right here. Inhale, maybe you get lower. Exhale, press up. We're working on the form. Good. The other thing I want you to notice is if the front of your hips lead the movement too, we don't want that. See right there, the hips sinking? Pull the hips off the floor. Last two. Inhale, bring it down. Exhale, press up. Final one. Inhale down. Exhale up. And sit back on to your heels. So that is proper push-up form, so you can keep working on that. Feel free to do way more reps. Feel free to do 1 rep and just work on the form. Getting better form will definitely help you build real strength and not just kind of go through the motions of the movement. So we're going to take a seat. Crisscross those legs. Pelvic stability from a seated position. So when we move into a twist, in this kind of twist, we're not doing an open twist where we're going to move the whole torso. I want you to do an isolated twist where we move from the chest and the ribs and the head and above. So let's take our hands behind our head, drop your shoulders down, press your head into your hands, do that chicken neck we talked about. On your exhale, we'll twist to the right, just from my chest, but I don't want my left hip coming with me. So your left hip is going to stay heavy, and maybe even you think about the left hip pulling back away from your twist. And then center. We'll relax the shoulders. Exhale, we turn to the left, and now the right hip stays heavy. Inhale, center. Soften the shoulders, lift the head. Exhale to rotate. Inhale to release any tension. Exhale, twist. Inhale, center. The other thing we're looking at is the plumb line. So think a line straight down your body. Once you've turned your head, freeze. That plumb line should still be there. When you'll lose your plumb line is if you do something like this. Just turn your head, right? So I'm looking for your nose to line up with the center of the chest the whole time. Okay, one more spine twist, right and left. We breathe out to turn. Breathe in to lift the spine taller. Breathe out, rotate. Breathe in, release. Good, relax the arms. Okay, shake those shoulders out. Coming into a side bend. So let's place the right hand on the floor. Fingers point out. The left hip should not move the ground, meaning it should not lift off the floor. So left hip stays planted. Left arm reaches straight up, and you want your palm facing you. Your upper arm turning forward. Now we're going to lean over to the right, and then lean your head, neck, and shoulders back. So our chest is wide rather than rounding towards the mat. Breathing into that breath that we practice. Inhale out into the rib cage, exhale, release. You're creating as much space between your left fingertips and your left hip. So the hip goes down and the fingertips go out and over. Big breath in, and then exhale, bring it up. Lateral flexion. Feels pretty good, yeah? Left hand out to the left, fingers point to the wall, shoulders slide down. We're gonna reach that right arm straight up. Now turn the right elbow and upper arm forward and pull the shoulder into the socket. Then I'm leaning up and over to the left. Now maybe you're really tight here. Then I just want you to think of going straight up. Try to touch the ceiling. For me, I'm pretty tight in my lats. That certainly, I feel that. If you need a little more, you're gonna lean into it without losing contact of the mat with those hips. Then, chin into the throat, chest is proud, reach and lean back. And let's take 2 big breaths in the rib cage. Last one. Good, and release. You guys, that was amazing. I give you a round of applause. That was just some serious alignment focus for about 60 minutes. So I really hope you get a takeaway from this. Maybe you just learned something new or felt something new in your body. That would just make my day. So please let me know in the comments if there was something new you found out. And I know this class for some of you would be super hard and really new, and for some of the more advanced practitioners, just slowing it down sometimes is so hard for us, right? So that can be a challenge. when we get more advanced, we just want to go, go, go. And sometimes when we're a beginner, we're too afraid to start something. So I just really hope that this class kind of had it all. Let me know what you found in this class that was helpful. My name is Lindsay Bushman. This is Pilates on Demand. Please subscribe, like, share with your friends, share with people that you think this would be helpful for. And I really hope to see you on the next class. Bye, guys.